After studying this module, you shall be able to know the meaning of advertising, know the importance of advertising objectives and factors affecting budget, identify the appeals used in the advertisements, and understand involvement and cognitive response theories in executing the ads.
This module is all about advertising. Everywhere you go, you find ads catching your attention. Can you think of some ads that come first in your mind? Select the first ad that came to your mind. What do you think was the purpose of that ad? Was it to catch your attention? Was it to persuade you to buy? Or was it just informing you about the brand? If we were to ask you to make an ad, how much money will you spend in making that ad? What would you keep as the main message? Would you choose to advertise on television or on magazines or billboards? These and other issues will be discussed in this module. This module is basically divided in 4 parts, which we call the 4 M's of advertising: mission, money, message and media. Mission is the objective of the ad, the purpose for which it is made. Money is the budget, what is the limiting factor in making the ad. Message is what is it that you want to convey to your audience. And media, what tools or what media will you choose to convey your message.
Let us start by understanding what is advertising. Today, advertising has become so commonplace that it surrounds people whether they live in the cities or the rural areas. From billboards, radio channels, television channels, print media, buses and trains to even elephants, advertising has become omnipresent. But what exactly is advertising? Philip Kotler defines advertising as any paid form of non-personal presentation and promotion of ideas, goods, or services by an identified sponsor. This definition clearly highlights that advertising must not be one-to-one presentation. Rather, it is a form of communication for the masses. Additionally, the message or presentation must be paid for. Moreover, the paying entity must be clearly identified. Messages can be identified as advertising only when these conditions stand fulfilled. The American Marketing Association attempts to broaden the scope of advertising while retaining the Kotler's basic conditions. The American Marketing Association defines advertising as the placement of announcements and persuasive messages in time or space purchased in any of the mass media by business firms, non-profit organizations, government agencies, and individuals who seek to inform and or persuade members of a particular target market or audience about their products, services, organizations, or ideas. A convenient approach to study advertising is to understand its M's, that is, mission, money, message, and media.
Now we come to the first M of advertising, mission. Mission means objective. So we will discuss advertising objectives. Advertising objectives are very important because they provide direction and they show which way the entire ad is to look like. So the entire process of ad making is determined by the objectives. What is the kind of message that is to be conveyed? That will be determined by the objectives. Which kind of celebrity will you use? That will be determined by the objectives. What will be the background? What will be the music? What will be the color? All of that will be determined by the objectives. Now, there are four objectives that most advertisers use to advertise: to inform, to persuade, to remind, and to reinforce. What was the first one? To inform, to create awareness of the features of the product, of the benefits, and of what the brand stands for. What was the second objective? To persuade. To persuade means to create preference for, to create a liking and conviction for purchase. Some people like a brand, but they may not purchase. So, if we can persuade them to purchase the brand, this objective is fulfilled. What is the third objective? To remind. Repeat purchase of brands and products is dependent on how you remind them. Daily you are brushing your teeth with a particular brand of toothpaste, you may want to switch to another one. So, if you find an ad that reminds you that another brand exists, then you may want to purchase that. The fourth objective was to reinforce. Reinforce means to convince you that the purchase that you made was perfect. Now, let's say you purchased an expensive item, a car of 5 lakhs. You want to know I made the right decision. Everyone wants to know they made the right decision. So, naturally, if you find an ad which displays the features, which displays happiness of the consumers, that they bought the car and they are happy with it, that will reinforce that the brand you bought was the right choice.
Advertising objectives provide the direction and course of the entire process of making an advertisement. The objectives determine the kind of message to be conveyed, the appropriateness of the characters to voice the message, the background, and the context of advertisement. An example of an advertising objective for a brand like Complan could be 40% of Complan sales volume is derived from adult consumption living in the metro cities falling in the age bracket of 30 to 45 years. The goal of this advertisement is to increase the brand use and experience by 20% in the 3 months for this segment. As can be seen, objectives should be clearly specify the target audience as well as the impact being intended. Objectives should be backed up by market research. Insights uncovered from market surveys or focus groups can tune objectives to truly hit the need gaps of the target consumers. Impactful advertisements are therefore those whose objectives are built on market data. Now, looking at the advertising objectives. Advertising objectives can be classified into informative, persuasive, reminder, and reinforcement objectives. Informative advertising focuses on creating awareness of the features, whereas persuasive advertising creates preference, liking, and conviction for the purchase. Repeat purchase of brands or products is achieved through reminder advertising, while reinforcement advertising is done to reassure buyers that they have made the right purchase. Let us move our discussion to defining advertising goals for measured advertising results, that is DAGMAR. Russell H. Coley proposed the DAGMAR model in 1961. The model focuses on the development of specific advertising goals, which enables measurement or monitoring of advertisement effectiveness. These objectives relate to the four levels of consumer understanding, from unawareness to awareness, comprehension, conviction, and action. Awareness. to create awareness in the minds of target audience of the brand, product, or service. Comprehension to ensure that the target market has a sound comprehension of what the brand stands for, the product features, and its benefits. Conviction to develop a strong belief in the brand premise and product so as to ensure willingness to purchase. And lastly, action, that is, target audience buys the product. The objectives that are developed under these four levels should be written, clearly specifying the target audience and the time frame within which they are to be achieved. Good objectives are unambiguous, concrete, measurable, and clearly outline the benchmarks or the degree of change being sought. The given diagram shows how advertising carries consumers from the first level of objective to the last. The target audience 0 to target audience 3 mentioned in the figure are all subcategories of the whole target audience. Advertising stimulates consumers to move from one subcategory to another. The goal of advertising would differ depending on the stage of target audience or the subcategory being considered. The entire advertising campaign can be monitored by knowing how many consumers are lying at what level and filling in the gaps. The given diagram shows how advertising carries consumers from the first level of objective to the last. The target audience 0 to target audience 3 mentioned in the figure are all subcategories of the whole target audience. Advertising stimulates consumers to move from one subcategory to another. The goal of advertising would differ depending on the stage of target audience or the subcategory being considered. The entire advertising campaign can be monitored by knowing how many consumers are lying at what level and filling in the gaps.
We now come to the next M of advertising, which is money. Money or advertising budget. Advertising involves heavy expenditure. Most advertising budgets run into crores of rupees. So naturally, managers have to think carefully as to how they are going to use that. Now, those firms that assume that advertising is an expense, they find it difficulty to fund long advertising campaigns which run over the years. But those organizations which view advertising as an investment, they spend more money more willingly, and the impact of their campaigns is better. Now, when we analyze the budget, now there are four approaches that we can use to decide how much budget to keep: the percentage method, the sales method, the objective and task method, and the comparative parity method. The percentage method basically is keeping aside a fixed percentage every year. For example, I decide 10% of my sales will be kept for advertising every year. So if my sales increase, the same percentage will go to advertising, the amount will increase, and so on and so forth over the years. Similarly, sales method, you decide a fixed quantum of the sales. So every year I decide 10 crores that I will take out from my sales for advertising. The comparative parity method is just to look at the competitors and see how much are they spending on advertising. If they are spending a lot, I decide to spend a lot. If they decide to spend less, I spend less. The best approach is the objective and task method. The objective and task method means you decide your advertising objectives. You decide what tasks you want your ads to fulfill, and then decide how much budget is required to fulfill that objective. If your objective is to launch a new product and to create awareness, naturally you would like to have more advertising compared to maybe a product which has been existing for the last 10 years and you just want to maintain sales.
Let us move our attention to advertising budget. As the cost of media, especially television, is quite high, advertising budgets assume significant importance in the overall marketing budget. Organizations that view advertising as an investment in the goodwill or branding of the company keep larger budgets. However, firms that view it as an expense under marketing may find difficulty funding year-long advertising campaigns. The top management's perspective of the overall importance of advertising plays a vital role in determining the advertising budget. There are other factors that affect the quantum of budget. The stage in product life cycle plays a crucial role. As can be seen in the case of new products, they need greater advertising to invoke trial and build brand awareness. This is aptly seen with the mobile launches, where full front page ads in the newspapers were given in the launch of Moto E and Samsung S5 mobiles. Conversely, products that have matured and are running stable sales need much lesser advertising, as their purpose is only to remind the audience or sustain the level of sales. Competitive markets also require increased advertising. Greater market competition and clutter caused by the advertisements tend to squeeze the mind space and attention of the consumers. To break through this noise, repetitive and impactful advertising would be required, thereby raising the budget. Another determinant of budget is existing market share. If market share is low, brands would naturally require more advertising to be heard, remembered, and understood by the non-users. High market share brands have already established the initial objectives of awareness and cognition, and thus they need to advertise just to retain and remind the consumers. Every year, this can be evidenced by the sudden increase in the cold drink advertising of established brands in the beginning of the summer season, with happiness, like Coca-Cola, fun for Fanta, party for Pepsi based themes to remind consumers of their presence. That is reminder advertising. New entrants such as Paperboat have to struggle harder to be heard, and the audience too takes time to understand what value this brand is offering. This can be seen with all Paperboat advertisements detailing the product's unique features in an effort to persuade trial or persuasive advertising. Advertising budgets are also affected by the kind of approaches adopted by the organizations. Approaches vary from the percentage to sales method, that is, if sales increase, so does the budget, and vice versa. Affordable method, that is all that is left over after other expenses have been met. Objective and task method, wherein money is released depending on the advertising campaign objectives for the year, and the competitive parity method, in which they spend as much as the competition.
Now we come to the next M, which is message. Under message, we will primarily discuss three things: ROI, appeals, and involvement. What is ROI? Relevance, originality,